Welcome to my shop. My name is Gingell. Today I'm going to rebuild the hydraulic pump on this Ford 800 tractor, so stick around if you want to follow along. Behind me is a Ford 800 tractor. If you are working on a 600, 700, 800, or 900 Ford tractor, as well as the 01 series, meaning a Workmaster or Powermaster, or even a 2000 or 4000 early Ford with a 4-cylinder gas engine, then these techniques will apply. Notice that I did not list a Jubilee or a NAA. Those tractors had a different style hydraulic pump. It was a square vane pump. So unless your Jubilee or NAA has been updated to a round piston style pump, then these techniques won't apply. Here's how you tell the difference between an NAA and a 600 since they look so similar. A 600 or 800 will have a smooth axle like this. On a Jubilee, you will see a nut in the center and it looks different on the rear axle. Also, on a 600 or 800, you have holes here on this arm. It'll be solid on a Jubilee. There are many other differences between the tractors. These aren't the only two. And I have a separate video that talks about differences between the models. If you want to watch that video, I'll put an eye in the corner here and it will be a link to that video you can watch for yourself. But those two identifying characteristics should help you out and let you know what tractor you have. So if you have a model that this applies to, follow along. We're going to talk about troubleshooting first. This Ford 800 is losing a prime, and that's what causes the hydraulics not to work. Now you might say, what does that mean if a tractor loses its prime? It means that I start this tractor up and I first use it and the 3-point hitch won't work at all. And then after about 15 minutes, maybe half an hour worth of use, the 3-point will start working. That means that the pump lost its prime, and that while the tractor was running and as oil started circulating through the systems, the pump would get primed and then it would start working. But right off the bat, the hydraulics don't work. So if that is a similar characteristic that you are seeing on your tractor, then you likely have the same problem as mine and you need to do a pump rebuild. Here's what happens. There's a wobble shaft inside the pump that looks like this. You can see this wobble shaft is bad. It's got those grooves on there, and the wobble shaft goes up to this seal. The shafts get worn out, the seals get worn out, and as a result, the pump will only draw air instead of drawing oil, and that causes the pump to not take its prime. So we'll replace these parts as well as some other pieces inside the pump. Now, there is a way that you can manually prime the pump on your tractor, and you probably want to do this just to help you with troubleshooting. Since a lot of people, when their hydraulics begin to stop working, they immediately think that the pump is their problem. And yes, pumps are problematic. They do have problems, but the top lid has a ton of other components to it, and oftentimes the hydraulic problem exists in the top lid instead. And I have a separate video about the top lid. So don't automatically, as soon as your hydraulics stop working, go to the pump. You need to do troubleshooting and do this step. So in order to get a prime on your pump to help you determine if the pump is the problem, you need to take this bolt off the top here, and you can see that I'm using an Allen wrench to remove this. It's pretty tight. Let me get it loose and then I'll go the rest of the way with my finger. Once I remove this, I'm going to take some oil. I have 30 weight non-detergent oil in my can here, and I'm going to start pumping oil into the pump. As I pump oil in, I am turning the tractor over, rolling it over on the starter, so that the systems are moving, and once I see oil coming out of the top of the pump, then I'll replace my plug, I'll start the tractor up, and the hydraulics should work at that point since I'm priming the pump. Because I'm doing this by myself, I'm going to take the coil wire off just so that I have better control. If you're doing this with a friend and they're at the operator station, then you probably wouldn't need to do that. So I'm leaving the key turned how it is. The key is off. I have my tractor in neutral, and I'm just going to start pumping while I turn the tractor over. Remember, I'm doing this until oil comes out, which you can see oil come out right away. I want to make sure that the air is out of the system. Once that oil comes out, my pump is primed. Sometimes that might take, maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute worth of cranking. But if that system doesn't work for you, I'll show you a second way you can prime the pump. But normally this will work. I'm going to tighten this back up, I'll replace the coil wire, and then I'll be ready to start the tractor up and see if that primed the pump. I'm going to start my tractor up here. You can see that my lever is all the way up and my arms are not working. So that trick for priming the pump was not successful. I'm going to show you another option that you can do. I have a blow-off nozzle here. I am going to apply air pressure through the dipstick hole to help oil come up into the pump. Now, when I do this, I am taking the dipstick out first. Here, I'm just gonna set this aside. Then I'm putting my blow-off nozzle right into the hole of the dipstick. I'm turning it on, so I'm putting pressure into the system. Notice I have my lever up, so I have the pump ready to work. And I'm just applying pressure. Here you can see that my arms are coming up. So this is being successful to prime the pump. Now I'm stopping. I'm no longer blowing air into the reservoir here. I'm just gonna let that pressure release a little bit until I go ahead and then I take the blow-off nozzle out. Now I'm gonna turn the tractor off and I'll replace that dipstick. Now you need to be careful if you choose this option with your blow-off nozzle. Don't put your blow-off nozzle in there and then hurry up and pull it out, because you're putting pressure into the system. And if you pull it out quickly, then you're gonna have oil come out because you're putting so much pressure in there. So be careful if you use that step in order to get a prime on your pump. So now you can see that I have a primed pump and my hydraulics work. That confirms to me that everything's okay within my top lid, and the problem on this tractor is the pump. If you have the same findings, follow along with me. I'll show you every step in the process for doing a rebuild on that piston pump. When you are ready to rebuild your own piston pump, you're going to need some parts. On the table in front of me, I have the different kits that we offer. They can be confusing at first glance, so I want to roll through them with you on video here, and then you'll be ready to make an informed decision based off of what is wrong with your pump and what you want to do to repair it. The first kit here to my right is a standard kit. If you've been around Ford tractor repair for many years, this is the kit that you are familiar with. It does have some good pieces in it. It has a seat and the seal, gaskets that you need, as well as all of these springs. And if this is the kit that you want to go with, you can do so. However, when I'm rebuilding a pump, I tend to desire different pieces. One set here that I like to use is this basic kit. This comes with gaskets, new seal, the roller bearing, the race, needle bearing, and the O-ring for the top there. It also has this jack screw that you need in order to remove the race from your pump. You would purchase this kit if your pump is just losing a prime and you want to do a basic repair on it and get it back running again. Some people will purchase this basic kit and they will add a wobble shaft to it independently, since the wobble shaft isn't offered as a kit. That might be something that you would choose to do as well if your wobble shaft is worn, which I'll tell you is extremely common for the wobble shaft to be worn out. So that would be the basic kit option for you. If you want to do a very extensive repair on your pump, maybe you have a problem with your gear, or you are just somebody that likes to do a really thorough job on repairs, you're doing a comprehensive restoration on your tractor, then you would go with this premium kit shown here. All of these pieces in between my arms are in the premium kit. You see that you get a new wobble shaft, the parts for your speedometer, a seal, gear. This is the bearing plate that goes with your wobble shaft, as well as the plate here for your wobbler. We have a needle bearing. You get new seats and springs, gaskets here, and the plate, the roller bearing with the race. This is a very good kit, and you put these parts into your pump and it'll certainly make a difference. You will do a thorough job. Now, it's important to know that if you purchase this premium kit or the standard kit, the first one that I talked about, that have seats, and you want to replace the seats, then you will also need to purchase these tools here. This one installs the seats, this one removes the seats, and these tools are offered independently of kits. None of the kits include the tools, so if you need the tools, you got to add them to your cart separately. Also, if you want to replace any of the plungers in your pump, you can do so because we offer those independently. You need more than one plunger if you want to replace all the plungers in your pump, but they're sold individually, quantity one at a time on the plungers. So these are the pieces that are available to you. Some of these pieces in the premium kit are offered independently. Like you can buy just the gear, you can buy just the wobble shaft if you want to, just the speedometer parts, of course, if you want to add any of those pieces to a basic kit or the standard kit. You can purchase all of these parts on my website. It's farmtractorrepair.com. I realize that you can purchase hydraulic parts many places, but I ask that you give the business to my site. It helps to fund tractor tutorials in the future. Also, we do have top lid parts as well. If you need to make some other repairs to your tractor on the top lid, you can pick those parts up at the same time when you get your pump parts. Now I'm ready to take the pump off of the tractor. I'm using a pair of channel locks up here at the tachometer cable to loosen that up. There we go. I'm gonna pull that off. It does have a little notch on it, so when you pull yours off, just be careful and work there. Then I have 3 nuts at the bottom, or they could come off with the bolts, and then 2 up here. Once I have that all removed, the pump will come off the tractor. I do have a pan underneath because I'm expecting some oil to drip out. Whenever I first pull off a pump off the tractor, I turn this gear and make sure that I can hear the plungers working. Can you hear that? That's a good sound. It means that the plungers and the seats and everything on this end of the pump is good. Also, I spin this around just to inspect the gear and make sure that it's moving as it should. This is an example of the gear that's outside of the pump. You can see that inside here there's splines that line up to the wobble shaft inside the pump. If these little splines get worn on either the gear or the shaft, when you spin this gear around, nothing will happen in the pump. And then you would need to replace both your gear and your wobble shaft. So that would be, if you're having that symptom, that's probably what you see in your tractor. On rare occasions, you'll have a tooth broke off here. And if you do, then also check the opposite end of the gear on your tractor. Once you've done that inspection, you're ready to start disassembling. I always start on this end here, and this is a 1-inch wrench that you'll use here that's normally pretty tight like that. And then I'm gonna spin this off. Once I get this off, I'm gonna spin this around so that you can see inside here, because I want you to, oh, there's that second piece. I'm gonna turn this towards you, because I want you to see that inside there's a screw head. So you put your screwdriver through here, and then you'll use another screwdriver to hold the gear into place. This is gonna be difficult because now I can't see where the head is. Let me spin that around and see if I can find it. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm on the head. I'm holding the gear in place here with my other hand, and I'm gonna turn that so that it comes all the way out. I think I'm on the head. This is difficult to do in reverse. Oh, let me spin that around. Feel it moving. Nope, my finger won't reach. Let me come around to the front of the table here. Here we go. We'll do better this way. Okay, this is gonna come out. It's loose, so I think if I tip it, it'll just come out. There you go. That's a little piece that you wanna remove there. The next thing I'm gonna do is take these 4 bolts off around here so that I can get everything disassembled on the end here. Again, these might be tight as well, and once you have them loose, you can go the rest of the way with your finger, I'm sure. On my pump here, this requires a 9/16 wrench. These have really long threads on them. They take a while to get off. Inside the pump, we see the wobble shaft. Here we see the plungers. You can push these down and hear them all plunge. You would want to do that inspection to make sure yours are good. I'm gonna set this side aside for now and just talk about this half of the pump. On this end, I have the wobble plate that will come off first. It just pulls off. And then here is the wobble bearing. I have pulled these pumps apart before, and these bearings all fall apart. This one is in nice shape, but if yours falls apart, you'll want to replace it. Inspect your plate as well and make sure that that is not grooved. If it is grooved, you'll want to buy a new plate and not put a grooved plate back in. The next piece we're going to take out is the wobble shaft itself. So I'm going to turn this to the side, and then I'm just using a punch like this one to drive it through, because sometimes it's pretty tight onto that gear. There we go. I was on the edge of the casing, not on the wobble shaft itself. Here's my wobble shaft. You can, wow, I can feel some pretty serious grooves on this wobble shaft. That is definitely the problem on this pump. You can see how bad that is. This is extremely common for wobble shafts to be grooved like this one. If you find that yours is, you absolutely want to replace it. Once your wobble shaft is out of the pump, then your gear here is freed up to come out. Notice the way that it comes out. The smooth side is on this end, and then this side comes out towards the tachometer. You want to pay attention to weight. Your gear is too, so that you put it back together in the same way. The next step in this repair is to get the seal out of the pump. This might be the hardest part that you do, but it's vitally important. Remember, the seal is what is causing this pump to lose its prime. So we have to get the old one out and we have to get a new one in. I have found in my experience that the best way to remove the seal is with a tool like this one. I like this because it has the curve on it. This is like a small pry bar, I guess is what you would call it. But that curve is important because when you stick it in through the hole, it allows you to get past the needle bearing and be able to drive only the seal out. So inside the pump here, you can see that there is a race first. Let me show you. Here's the old race. The race is in there first, holding the seal in. The rubber part of the seal is going to be the first part to come out. Then I'll go back with a chisel to drive this metal part of the seal out, and then I'll follow by removing the race and the needle bearing. I'm going to use safety glasses here. Looks like I just got a smudge on the eye part, so let me wash that off. It's a result of my dirty gloves. There we go. And once again, I'm setting this in between the needle bearing and the seal, and I can see through this crack here to make sure that I get it in the right spot. My hammer's all the way over here. So I've got this here, and then I'm going to begin driving it out. I am making good progress in here. I just felt that maybe the seal came loose or something. I've got some pieces down here. Here's just part of the seal that has come apart, which is okay because we're getting a new seal, so it's okay if I damage it. And then you can see that all the little pieces from my needle bearing came out as well, which again is fine because we're getting a new needle bearing. Can pick a little bit of this rubber out of there. The next step is going to be to put this over here into the vise. Now I'm setting it into the vise here so that I can access the sheet metal end of the screw. I'm going to start with a small chisel to work my way around. I'm just tapping the very edge. What I'm trying to do is fold the seal in so that once I have it all folded in, it'll come out past the race. My seal is loose. I was hoping that if I got on it with pliers, it'd come the rest of the way. I'm so close. There we go. Phew. That is the very end of it. I have a bolt cut to the right size with a nut on the end that I'm going to use like a jack screw. So I'm just going to set this down in there like so, and then I'm going to tighten up the nut on the end in order to make that long enough to be able to catch on the race. So once I have that tight, just going to turn in a couple more turns here with my finger. Once I have it tight, it'll be able to catch onto the race, onto that lip. You can see that there. Make sure that it's going to be set. It is. So then I can flip this around and I'll just set it on the vise. I have enough of this covered that I'm not worried about breaking off the tabs there. And I'm going to use this chisel to drive all the way down through here. It's going to rest on that jack bolt. Let me get a longer one. That's going to be better. Just like this. Then I'm going to tap it out, and as it comes, it'll bring the race with it. This little jack screw is included in the basic kit and the premium kit, or you could make one yourself. There goes both my jack screw and my race. Hang tight. I'm going to pick that up. If I can, it's slippery. There we go. Okay, here's my race completely out. You need to get your race and your seal out. Oh, that looks like maybe it was a piece of the needle bearing. Everything out of there. I am packing a little bit of grease around the inside of my needle bearing here so that when I drive it in, it doesn't fall apart because I'm going to be pounding on it. And then I'm just going to spray a little bit of penetrating oil around the outside. Let me dry that off. I got a little more than I wanted. Okay, make sure it's still oiled up, and then I'm ready to just drop it in. I am trying to set it in there flush, or straight across, I should say. I'm going to drive it in until it's flush. Then I'm using a socket that's the right size. I just went over to my socket drawer with the needle bearing and chose one that's going to help me drive it all the way around evenly in. So I'm going to start just a little bit to make sure that I'm straight. Take a peek at it. Looks good. I'm going to flip this socket around, and then I'm going to drive it the rest of the way down. Just watching it because I want to be careful here. A little bit more till it's flush. Did get it in here really straight, which is important. And I like how that looks. Your needle bearing should look similar there so that it's not crooked. The next piece to go in will be this seal. You can see that it is not directional, but on this side there's a little bit more of a lip across it, so I'm going to put that side up. I'm going to spray this with penetrating oil as well before I put it in, and then I'll be ready to drive this in. Again, I just picked a socket that will be the appropriate size for it, and I'm going to drive it in all the way until it's flush. I hope you can notice that my body of the pump is all cleaned up. You can use some carb cleaner to clean yours and paint it if you desire. I painted mine since I used a sandblaster. Here we go. I am very straight in there. I'm just going to drive it the rest of the way until it's flush. It's looking good. It's just got to go a little bit more. There we go. I'm going to tap it just a little bit more on this side because I think I got a little bit crooked at the end. Straighten it out. That looks really good. I can see that it's flush in there. Let me run my finger along there just to make sure. Yeah, that looks really good. So the next step is the race. I have my new race here, and I want to point out to you that it is directional. See how if you look at it, it's kind of pointed in. That bevel in kind of goes like that, where the smaller side goes in first and the wider side comes out like this. You're going to drive that out the same way. You just use a socket or drive it in the same way. Just use a socket that is the right size and drive it all the way down until it's flush. The next step is to put your bearing onto your wobbler shaft. Notice that this is directional. It's narrower here and wider, and it goes on just like this. Once I have that set on there, I'm going to flip it over. I chose a deep well socket that is the right size to help me tap that into place. Make sure that I'm driving it on very well. It's going, but it's going slow. Here we go. Okay, that looks good to me. It's all the way on there, just like that. I think I might need to drive it just a little bit more. Bear with me here. Yeah, that looks better. I don't have a gap in there. So my bearing is onto my wobbler shaft very well. The next thing I'm going to do is take this roller bearing up to the top of here, and then my plate, and slide those on together, just like that. And now I'm ready to slide this through. I'm going to put a little bit of WD-40 on here so that it doesn't go up against the seal dry. And then this will slide through. Then I'm going to put my new gear into place. Remember I said that the gear was directional. Here's the smooth side, and it's going to go this way. I'm going to pull my wobble shaft out, and then I've got to turn this until it fits, the splines fit in there. Just like that. I think I'm on the splines. I am. And then it will just go all the way through, just like that. And make sure that this moves freely. that this moves freely as well. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna snap that in there. It looks like everything is set into place. Now I'm ready to assemble all these pieces on the end of the pump that are for the tachometer. The first is this little screw, and it has a washer behind it. So I'll drive this through and tighten it up. Once that's in there and tight, then I will set this drive through the slot here. You can see that lines up, makes sense. And then this goes over it with a gasket. And that will all be on the end here. I'm gonna assemble that off camera because once I start putting my screwdriver in there, you can't really see what goes on. But here you can see the proper order. Make sure that you get yours all put back together in this order as well. Taking my last bolt off the end here so I can take off the other half, disassemble the other half of my hydraulic pump. Just gonna give it a tap here to get it loose. Saw it move there. There we go. Here you can see inside all these rollers. There's more in there. Let me try to shake them out just so they don't give us problems in the future. And then also these plungers and springs came out from the other side. I'm gonna flip this over, and on this side, you can see that there's a screw right there that holds that plate into place. This is a Phillips screw inside here. And I'm going to take that off, and then you can see that the plate underneath there is loose and it's acting like it wants to come to. There we go. And that reveals more balls inside of there. I'm using this tool to pull out the seats. You can see that the seat is on the end of the tool here. This tool expands. Once you put it in the hole, you tighten down the top, and then it expands enough out to grab onto the seat and help you pull it up as you tighten down this bottom nut. If you are going to go to the extent to replace the seats in your pump, meaning you want to do a really thorough job, then you would need to purchase a tool like this one to help you get the seats out. And then, in order to put the new seats in, you need an installation tool like this one. If you look really closely at the new seats, you can see that they do have a bevel. The bevel goes to where the ball is going to rest on it. So the bevel side, which I see here, is going to come up towards the top, and the smooth side goes down towards the bottom. So I'm just going to drop this right in that same hole. I drop it in, and then I just use this tool to pound it down all the way. I'm ready to put my gasket in here. You can see that there's a little notch, and that is directional. It'll help you get everything lined up. So once the gasket is into place, then I have springs like this that drop down. You can see all the little dowels in there. There are 6 springs, which you'll have to, sometimes they might get a little twisted up like that. You can just separate them out and set them in every spot there. And then on top of these springs, you put 1 ball on each. So I'm just gonna slide those around there. The next step, once I have the balls in there, I'll tip it up so you can see it, is to put my plate on. You can see that there's dowels here with springs. These springs are tapered. This is the wider end, this is the smaller end down here. The smaller, tighter end goes onto that dowel. You kind of smoosh it down in there and kind of spin it around as you put it on. And then you can see that it goes on all the way to be on there. Those take a little bit of time, so I went ahead and did those 5 before we started the camera, just to save a little bit of time. Then here we have a notch, which again is going to line up with the notch over here. So I'm going to drop that down, just like that. I'll tip that up so you can see how that is. My next step is to come over here to this end, and once again I have the balls that are going to go on top of where the seats are. So you can look here, you can see that some of those holes have threads, and that is not where you want to put your balls. Short 1 ball, which was still in my bag. So there we go. I have all 6 of my balls inside there. Next, I have 1 more gasket. Again, pay attention to where that notch is and line the notch up with the plate here. That will just rest into the cavity there. This Phillips screw goes through the center of the plate there, so I'm going to tighten it up all the way. When I took this pump apart, this screw was super loose. It shouldn't be loose. There we go. It's tight. I have my gasket in place. Notice how it is there. And with that, I'm ready to drop it on to the body of the pump. You can see that it goes one direction, and these are lined so that they're both facing up. And with that, I'm ready to drop my bolts through here. Remember that they do have that washer behind them. My next step is to put the plungers into the pump. I'm just gonna spray all of them so that they don't go in dry. And then there's a spring on the end, and then it just drops down into the hole. You do need to be careful when you drop these in that you drop them in straight. You don't want to get them crooked. And then once you have them in there, just press them up and down with your thumb, make sure that they're working properly. Now, if you decide that you want to put new plungers in your pump, we do offer the plungers. Remember, they are sold individually, not as a set. There are 2 different sizes of plungers available on these pumps. So you would need to measure your plungers first and then watch the description on the website to make sure that you order the correct size plungers for your pump. I'm dropping these in one by one. And I have one that's stuck. I must have got it a little bit crooked. And of course, since I put the WD-40 on there, it makes them a little bit slippery to move them. So here I'll show you what they should look like. See how they plunge in and out like that? And this one doesn't do that, so let me fix it. I do not want to put the pump together without that going up and down. There we go. Now it goes. I got this one going up and down. This one's still stuck, and I think I just have it. Okay, there we go. All of my plungers work as they should, so now I'm ready to proceed. Up here I have an O-ring, and I have this cleaned out, so I'm ready to put the new O-ring in, just like that. And then I'm ready to drop the 2 halves of my pump together. So this only goes configures one way, and I'm watching be like this. So all the bolts will line up. This is spring loaded, so you kind of got to work one at a time here. I'm just gonna set all these in the hole, and then I'll push it down and get some of these bolts started into place. The 2 halves of my hydraulic pump are now back together, so now I'm ready to put it onto the tractor and prime it. Before I start the tractor, I am gonna put fresh oil in. I've already drained my old oil. It was really thick. I think the person before me had put the wrong oil in, which might have been part of our problem, but fresh oil will make a big difference. Now, I would like to recommend to you to purchase hydraulic and transmission oil like this one. Back in the day, you would have put 90 weight gear lube in this compartment and this compartment. But since those compartments tend to flush together, it's better to just put hydraulic and transmission oil in all 3 compartments. This is the fill position for the hydraulic oil. So with that, I'm gonna add oil, and then we'll be ready to start the tractor. It's time to start my tractor up and see how the 3-point operates now. I'm going to lift my arms up here. You can see that my 3-point arms come all the way. If I stop them, I have good control in the middle position, and then I'm gonna let them back down. This is good. This is how your 3-point arm should operate. I have no jerking or hesitation at the top or the bottom. This is a really good repair to the hydraulic pump. Now, if you prime your pump, you get your tractor running, and you notice a secondary problem, which does happen, then you need to watch the top lid video. That's where we cover the pivot pin, all of this external linkages here, the piston that's inside the cylinder, etc. So go ahead and watch the top lid video if you need further help on your tractor. There might be a case where you watch this video and you say, Thanks for teaching me all that, Rachel, but that is way too much work for me. It's more than I want to tackle. No problem. You can take your pump off, send it in to us, and we'll send you a new one, not a new one, a one that has been rebuilt that you can put onto your tractor. If that's the case, all you have to do is remove those few bolts in your tachometer cable and just put a new pump onto your tractor. So that option does exist for you. It is a little bit more expensive since you aren't DIYing on the repair costs, but if that's a route you want to go, that option is available to you. That pump and all the pump repair parts are available on my website, farmtractorrepair.com. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel as we release new videos often, and you'll get a notification whenever a new one comes up.